Well, let me start by saying thank you to everyone for sticking to the Zoom life here in the latter part of the day, especially those of you who have been a part of this virtual gathering all day. I know it can be a time of flagging enthusiasm for the screen, but I think we really saved the best for last here. I couldn't be more thrilled to be honoring two people who I really treasure and value so much. And for those of you who know Gary Nabhan and Dana Burtness, I think you're surely just as excited to be to honor them. And for those of you who don't know Gary or Dana yet, I'm really excited for you because it's an opportunity for you to get to know them and be introduced to their work and to them, and be inspired and open up a door to learning and doing a lot more that you might incorporate into your lives. So it's my privilege to help kind of ringlead this awards session, and we started just a couple years ago to do an awards ceremony as part of the Perennial Farm Gathering. And really the purpose has been to honor and celebrate members of our community who have put their heart and their soul into the vision that we all share of a more diverse and perennial agriculture. And just as a way of a little bit of background and context, 2 years ago, we presented the inaugural Deep Roots Award to Paul Johnson. And Paul was a forester and a farmer in Iowa who also had a career in public service that culminated as chief of the Natural Resource Conservation Service. And Paul championed a vision of farms as more than centers of production, but a geography of hope, places of beauty and abundance that for the present and for the future. And last year we honored Kathy Capel, a humble and yet quietly powerful sheep farmer and fabric artist who has mentored and made land available and accessible, and that's made more agroforestry possible in central Illinois than I think many would have imagined just a few years ago. And so I wanted to give a little bit of flavor for those of you who haven't been a part of those award ceremonies in past years, and also give you the sense that we're honoring another sheep farmer among many other accolades for Brother Gary today, and that more importantly, our awardees today share that vision and have in their own ways put their heart and soul into this vision. And I'll save talking about the New Shoots Award until we get to that term. We'll start with this Deep Roots Award. And I am very grateful that our friends Kurt Miney and Eliza Greenman have offered to say a few words on Gary's behalf today. But I want to start by just sharing a little bit of my perspective on Gary, who's been widely celebrated and adored by an impressive variety of different communities and groups. And I think the through line from my point of view is how Gary's always been a border crosser, a shape shifter of sorts, and a bridge builder. When this popped up for me just over Thanksgiving, I was at my in-laws' house and happened to pick up a book called The Original Local by Hyde Erdrich, who is an Ojibwe woman and wrote this beautiful recipe book. And I was just a few pages into the introduction, and here she was referencing Gary's work in renewing America's food traditions to explain her book's project in sharing recipes based on native foods and indigenous foodways with a wider audience. So, Gary's work has really reached a lot of different audiences, and I could elaborate on many of those cases. But to me, what's been just really valuable and impressive to me, meaningful to me personally, I should say, is highlighting and centering immigrants and refugees who labor in our food systems, and even the plants themselves. One of my favorite of Gary's works is his arboreal love affair with the mesquite tree, which I hope you'll all pick up and enjoy as much as I did. So crossing those borders with cultures and generations and even species. And so it's really our privilege at the Savannah Institute to present this award to Gary. His laurels extend far beyond what an organization of our meager repute might offer to his credit. But it's really my hope that those of you who've not had the pleasure and enlightening opportunity to experience Gary's view of the world, his work in the world, I hope you'll find your way into his books and hopefully into your own experiences of border crossing and bridge building. And if that sounds rather esoteric, I assure you that Gary has a impeccable track record of practicing agroforestry and working with trees too. And before I hand it over to you, Kurt, our own logistics and mail service didn't get it to you in time for this ceremony, Gary, but we have on the way to you a turned wooden bowl made out of box elder wood, which is in part affection for your role as an elder in this community, and in part also the box elder, a much maligned tree in many landscapes, but I know a tree that perhaps only the likes of you could love, and it's really a beautiful bowl. So I hope you'll accept it as a token of our deep appreciation for you, Gary. With that, Kurt, I want to hand it over to you as someone who's known Gary for many seasons to share a little perspective on his life and work.
Oh, thank you, Keith. And thanks to Savannah Institute for everything. And I hope we've had a good first day of the Perennial Gathering. And I really appreciate your offering this award to Gary, especially given that lineage of the prior two recipients. It's just, those are high bars, and I know Gary likes high bars, but that's another question. So very quickly, I only have a few minutes to say a few words, and I frankly will admit that I was pressed for time today, so I rushed home and made sure my computer was working so I could join you, and then I sat myself down to try to concentrate. But I ended up just pulling off my shelf three of Gary's many books, and they happened to be within arm's length, so it became pretty convenient to do this. And I thought I would just do this as a way of demonstrating some of what you just talked about, Keith. Gary's great breadth of knowledge and his great depth of heart in the work that he's brought and shared with all of us. So the first and closest book I had was one of my favorites. I'm going to show these in my show and tell. This book still remains one of my all-time favorite books in any genre, but Cultures of Habitat, the very title of it, gives you a sense of Gary's, I would almost say, unique contributions. In my world of crossing the boundary from conservation biology and biodiversity into agriculture and sustainability and issues, Gary has always been a patriot in this, but he's always been a few steps ahead of me. My joke has always been, when I grow up, I want to be Gary Nabhan, but he's still always 5 years ahead of me, so I don't know if I'll ever catch up to him. But in this book, if you ever picked it up, you would see how Gary weaves together all the threads we care about: biodiversity, indigenous knowledge, climate change. It was published in 1997, I should mention. Climate change, human health and nutrition, biocultural restoration, and especially for our gang here, food and agricultural traditions. All of it gets woven into this really wonderful tapestry in this book. And so it remains on my shelf, and I refer to it all the time. The second book that was close by was the one Keith just mentioned, Restoring America's Food Traditions. Here, I hope you all can see that. We could do a whole symposium on Gary's contributions to agroecology and agroforestry and to perennial food systems and food traditions. There's a lot we could say about technical aspects of ethnobotany and of agroecology that Gary has always been a pioneer in, and always a pioneer in connecting the science to the cultural dimensions. But within America's food traditions, of course, there's plenty to grab onto here if you're interested in agroforestry systems. And the third book I grabbed off my shelf was one I was fortunate actually to contribute to myself. In fact, co-authored with Gary a little piece. This is, there you go, Stitching the West Back Together. A book more recent, this is from 2014, but it highlights a third aspect of Gary's legacy for us. And I hate to use that word because it sounds like he's done, but Gary's never done with anything. But his commitment to collaboration, to healthy communities, to crossing boundaries, literal and figurative, to bringing people together in realizing alternative systems on the land. And I would even say there's a time dimension, connecting past to the present to the future in all of this work. And so this is a book primarily about the American West. But interestingly, Gary asked me to contribute and work with him on a piece about the Driftless area here in Wisconsin, which had some important legacies for collaborative work in agriculture and conservation. So take these three books over 25 years, and I could have gone all the way back to his earliest books. But thinking about interdisciplinary science and cultural dimensions, thinking about technical aspects of the science of agroecology and agroforestry, and the social dimensions of collaboration. That's a pretty good summary of at least several of the major themes in which Gary's given us so much. And the last thing I'm going to say, I'm going to share with you just a couple photos if I can do this. Yeah, if I can do this there. I hope you all can see this. This is from a visit Gary made up here to Wisconsin, not far from the Spring Green campus, about 20 miles from the Spring Green campus. We were visiting some ancient garden beds that the Ho-Chunk Nation in our neighborhood has now taken on and stewarded, taking care of their ancestral agricultural systems for the future. And so Gary came up to visit us and lent his expertise and knowledge and background to help inform this effort. But the last thing I'll say is that Gary, among other things, and all those who were on this call before everyone else jumped aboard can attest to this, is it's hard to be too serious around Gary Paul Nabhan. As serious as his work has been, probably the most valuable in terms of personal connections is there's never a conversation with Gary when we don't have a lot of laughs, when we have a lot of fun talking. And so while I was looking for this old photo of Gary, let me see here. Okay. I also found this photo. So I'm going to embarrass him. I wasn't going to do this, but what the heck, right? You only get to do this now and then. So here is one more screen shared photo for you to, maybe there's a story behind this that Gary can share with me. That's what I have a feeling this has something to do with agaves. The last thing Gary and I did before COVID hit us, we had a wonderful opportunity to visit Guadalajara, Mexico, and go out and investigate a perennial system of agaves and cacti south of Guadalajara. So I'm sure this has to do with serious research that Gary was up to at the point. But it's a really important lesson for all of us that as vital as all this work is and becomes more important and demanding every day, to take time out to really celebrate each other and to have fun as we do this work. And that's probably the most important lesson not only Gary has taught me, but that we continue to live every time we have an opportunity to talk or to be together in the field. So thanks, congratulations, Gary. Can't wait to have you back to Wisconsin and the upper Midwest sometime to visit us on the ground.
Blessings to you, Kurt. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Kurt, for sharing those reflections, and thank you for bearing with him, Gary. In addition to all of, pun intended, in terms of your co-authorship, I wanted to also invite someone who is familiar not only with your work in the sort of conceptual space and the insightful writings that you've shared, but the perspective of a practicing agroforester and just what a connection with you represents for someone who makes a living out of working with trees. So I invited Eliza to share a few reflections. Are you ready to do that, Eliza?
Yeah, I am. Well, Gary, on on this day, this exact day, 14 years ago, when I was living in Germany, a friend stopped in and gifted me a book for my birthday. And it was your book, Where Our Food Comes From. And of course, that's the story that Gary tells of the famous plant explorer, Nikolai Vavilov, and how you retraced his journeys through these genetic centers of food origin around the world. And that was my first ever glimpse into the realm of plant exploring. And I have to tell you that it immediately, when after I read this book, it was like, oh my God, this could be a job. Like I could have Gary's job and do this. And so, I mean, in all truth, like that book was like a momentous occasion in my life that sent me down this path that I'm on, but I didn't realize it at the time. But back to the book, like one of the things you hammered in it was that the heartbeat of this plant exploration was these genetics, the ones that have nourished indigenous communities around the world, need to be saved, and they need to be worked with now. And the frustrations, the current of frustration was very evident throughout, of the lack of work and the lack of any sort of breeding or any sort of improvement by places such as like land-grant universities, and how they're just so notoriously turning blind eyes towards that, which is truly important for buffering a lot of the things we face today: climate change, food sovereignty, health of communities. And so, in going back, I'm going to go back a little bit. So once you introduced me to plant explorers, I literally have like read everything I could get my hands on about plant explorers of the past, and this message of these crops are valuable. We need to save them. We need to work with them. We need to reintroduce them and get them into the communities. Has been echoed for at least a century by notable tree crops people around the world. And I'm pleased to say that at least Savannah Institute and my work with them is one small facet of answering your call, and answering the call of fruit explorers and plant explorers for centuries and more to go and find and work with these tree crops in order to improve them and get them back on the landscape in meaningful and effectual ways. So first of all, Gary, you're all to attribute to that. You got all those wheels going. So that's just a quick highlight of how important I think you are, but also, and your work has been, but also this realm of biodiversity and conservation and radical ecology and all of that, it can be really traumatic with the more you work and the more you are aware of what's going on. And a lot of people in this realm with me, with you, wear that trauma in the form of being sour or or thorns, basically. And I wanted to just really highlight how, Gary, even though you live in an area that is jam-packed, everything has thorns. Everything around you has thorns in the Southwest. And yet, to me, you are remarkably thornless. And also just an incredible elder who has been able to take this trauma and, much like a tree, heal over and yet still communicate your wisdom through the insane amount of things that you do. And you're just able to touch with this joy. I can't underestimate like the joy and the fun and what that does for young perennial people getting started and thinking there is hope and there is a place for me, and there is a niche that I can occupy that's needed. And so you're everywhere, you're in everything, and I really just am so thankful for you on my perennial journey, but also in the work that me at Savannah Institute gets to do that you're in. And I will also say that Gary is one of the only, I think he's the only person in my life that I have run into in the most remote places. And it's always been because of alcohol made from tree crops that's brought you there. But I think you're the only one that, I've run into in Doug Spur, Virginia. Or Abingdon, Virginia, or, places that are considered extremely rural. So thank you, Gary. Your deep roots run through everything. And I am so appreciative of your work and just your support. So thank you.
Thank you.
Gary, do you have anything to say for yourself for this accusation that you're to blame for leading us all astray?
I'm if I'm guilty of anything, it's loving you guys, that you have invigorated me and the world we live in so much, and that the chance like last summer to be with you all in New York just meant so much to me, whether it's Eliza or Keith or Scott or the dozen other hardworking, bright, visionary people that we shared a few days with talking agroforestry in New York. Keeps me from being a Pleistocene fossil. The people who can't share that joy with Eliza's and Kurt's and Scott's and Keith's are just going to become fossilized. And the only thing that keeps our blood flowing and our laughter going is a joy that you all bring in, and the incredible vision of Savannah Institute, who just is something to celebrate every day now. There's so much exciting work going on that I don't think you can underestimate how much you all mean to those of us who are old and in the way. We're the old stumps out there, and we're so happy that there's seedlings and saplings and vital growth in all your branches, and your ever-bearing attitude really is something that has made all the difference to my life the last few years during the Corona beer epidemic that we've been going through. So thank you all, and just so grateful to be with you. I can't even tell you how much your work means to me.
Well, that's far too kind, Gary. I think I can speak for all of us, and just echoing that gratitude that Eliza put so well. And I think none of what we're all up to and so privileged to be able to spend some of our lives on would be possible without the mycelial network that's benefiting from what your deep roots are sending our way, and by way of inspiration. So thank you, Gary, and it's really our privilege to be able to share this award with you today. So thank you.
Well, on behalf of the mesquite tree just a few miles away from me that has 165-foot roots, we are all with you in your rootedness.
Well, Dana, I want to turn attention to you now. I know that's a big a tough act to follow, but that's really, I think, exactly what we're talking about here, is that we're all following someone else's act, and that someone else will be following our acts one day. And to me, that's one of the really important reasons why we wanted to share this award with you this year, is that as long as I've known that you had a vision for having a farm, that vision has included how it could be an incubator farm where you would be bringing up the next generation along with you. And so I really value the tone that you've set as an emerging leader in perennial agriculture. You're principled and passionate and deeply interested in the well-being of the land and the people on the land, and relatable for all kinds of people. And you do it without any kind of pretension. And you model a lot of learning and generosity in the world. So I think, you know, your contributions to a more perennial and diverse agriculture extend far beyond what you've done with Savannah Institute, but I do want to highlight a few of those things that I deeply appreciate. Your service on our advisory council, your being a mentor in the apprenticeship program, your presentations you've shared at the Perennial Farm Gathering, including being a movie star moderating our star-studded keynote panel last year at the PFG. I think you represent truly new shoots for perennial farming, and I can only say so much in that regard. We also have a bowl coming your way that's not there yet. I apologize, but I guess, and it's actually a bowl made of walnut, which is marginally appropriate, given that walnut's not that great at sending up new shoots, but it will do it as well. But I think it's well, it's just a beautiful bowl, and I think it represents too the container that you've built for lots of new growth to take place around you and be a part of what you're doing. So I really appreciate that about you. And we're going to share a video with some highlights of Dana's work that we have queued up. But first, I want to hand it to my friend Jen, who leads our apprenticeship program, and wanted to share a few words about Dana as well.
Hey, thank you. Well, we'll get a lot of cute video shots coming in from the video, so I don't need to share any of those, but I really encourage you all, if you have a down day at any time, to look at Dana's social media. It is full of just like the happiest pigs just frolicking through pastures, and it will just turn your day around. So, oh, Dana, what to say about Dana that hasn't already been said? Dana's a close partner with Savannah Institute, as Keith was saying, and she's a close personal friend of mine. Along with her partner, Nick Wynn, who's maybe in the background. They've made me feel like I have a community here in southwest Minnesota, kind of northeast Iowa pocket. We're country neighbors. Amongst some of the most powerful women and non-binary farmers I've ever encountered. They've made me feel like home. And she does that with most everyone that she ever meets. If you know Dana, you know that she knows everyone. She's dynamic, generous, and a true mycelium of a person, although Keith already used that phrase. Outside of Nettle Valley, she's done great work for the Blackhammer Township that she lives in. Her on-farm research barely scratches the surface of her drive and curiosity to better understand the ecosystems and the communities that she works within. She does not quit, and despite what she says, most Octobers near the end of pig season, we all know that she's not going to quit. A guiding question that I hear her come back to often originates from another close partner, Reynaldo Haslet-Marquin. To what end? Why are we doing this work? What's the larger purpose here? Well, she protests the title of agroforester farmer as an annual pig farmer is her main business. Just below that surface is how that operation feeds into all of the work herself and Nick are doing out at Nettle Valley. Much of the farm's profits are reinvested into transforming their 70 acres of neglected and overgrown wooded pastures and a versatile and resilient agroforestry paradise for people, pollinators, livestock, native flora and fauna. This is an ever-evolving answer to the question, to what end? Their hearts are steadily, patiently, and thoroughly enwrapped in the long-term vision of agroforestry, specifically silvopasture on their acreage, fueled by pork, both eaten and sold. If you ever need, just go look at the pigs. They're the happiest freaking pigs. Frolicking in the rotationally grazed paddocks, thick with tasty forages in the pasture, all linking back to the wagon wheel hub for feed, water, and shelter. Like I said before, we're our country neighbors, which means she is a quick 30-minute drive away from me. And this is the season we get to reconnect after all of the craziness, and I'm so looking forward to it. Around the dinner table last week, I remember thinking about the wisdom this human sees in markets, bodies, and weather patterns changing, climate change. She's an exemplary human that puts her soul into the long-term relationship with the land and animals she manages and lives the question, to what end? I'm so happy for her to be recognized as the New Shirts Award recipient, and I'm happy to have her as my friend here. Oh, I hope you're blushing.
I was told this was going to be a roast, so I protest.
Well, that's the other version. Should I put that one on? I don't know if we have time for that one. I'll tell you that one in person.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jen, for those heartfelt thoughts. PJ, do you have that short video queued up? Go ahead and play it when you're ready there, PJ. I'll just say this is a short video to highlight Dana and the farm and just a window into what they're accomplishing there.
My husband Nick Wynn and I run Nettle Valley Farm here in Spring Grove, Minnesota. We're a pastured hog farm mainly, but we also run an incubator farm program where we host young livestock farmers who are focusing on silvopasture and other agroforestry practices. So here on our farm, we are partnering for agroforestry. The farmers who were hosted here for the last 3 years through our incubator farm partnership, they were mainly doing agroforestry practices like silvopasture by subtraction. So one of our incubatees was using their herd of goats to manage recently forestry mowed and reseeded sort of degraded sloped woodlands. Another incubatee was using her flock of hair sheep to manage pastures and then also manage some of the vegetative regrowth that was popping up after forestry mowing and reseeding in those sloped woody pastures. So I think we're all of us here are focused on regenerative practices, resilience-based practices, working towards happiness and health of ourselves and our livestock and the land. So the way our incubator farm program works is that young beginning livestock farmers who have worked at other places and have an idea of the enterprises that they want to manage, but who are also just not quite ready to own or rent their own farms yet. This is a stepping stone for them so they can get experience managing their own enterprise with all the stresses and benefits that come along with that. But in more of a protected environment where there's plenty of equipment that they can borrow or rent. They can take advantage of our existing marketing channels. They can make really good, juicy mistakes without having a giant mortgage looming over their heads. And the idea is that at the end of the incubator farm program period, so 1 to 3 years, they're ready to rent or buy their own farms, hopefully in the area.
I'm Heidi Eager. I run Radical Heart Farm, and I'm partnering for agroforestry. I was a program participant in Nettle Valley Farm's incubator program for 3 seasons, where I raised 100% grass-fed lamb and mutton, and also organically fed pastured poultry. And it was a really great partnership. I had worked for other people on their farms and had learned a lot, but by being at Nettle Valley Farm, I was able to try being my own farm manager, my own boss, in an area where I didn't have a ton of overhead. I was able to, Nick and Dana, I've been really generous sharing tools and knowledge and networks and people, and then access to land. And I was able to just come in with sheep and chickens and a coop and some little bits of equipment. But it was a really good experience and a really good way to be able to try out managing my own farm in a way where I didn't have a ton of money sunk into it, and I could step away if I decided that this wasn't a lifestyle that I wanted. And this partnership has been really invaluable in launching me as my own farmer.
There are a lot of huge benefits for us as well. The way our incubatees pay for the experience and the access to land and equipment is through a work trade. And so usually 3 Fridays a month, 3 or 4 Fridays a month, we do a half day of work all together. And so usually they're helping me weigh pigs, seed recently forestry mowed, new silvopasture paddocks down in the valley, install perennial beds. It's kind of whatever I need help with. So it's really fun to have that sort of camaraderie and people power while you're trying to get a big project done on a pretty consistent basis. It's also just really great to have a built-in network, especially with livestock when emergencies and surprises can happen any time of the day, to just have people around who are also livestock farmers, and we just give each other mutual help when there's some sort of project that, you know, you need like 5 minutes of another person's set of hands, or when your livestock get out and it's all hands on deck to round them up and get them back in. There are so many benefits to having partnerships through an incubator farm program.
So for land access, we traded 4 hours a week, so 12 hours a month, for helping Nick and Dana with projects around the farm. So I think that is sort of the most clear-cut benefit. The sort of definitely both the sheep and the goats, and then we had poultry, both Bailey and I had poultry up in the yard, are adding fertility and improving soil health and improving ecosystems. The goats clearing out the woods was fascinating to watch. Watching the plant communities change and the grass get thicker every year was really fun. Sheep do a great job of trampling things and improving soil health.
One of the reasons why I'm so excited about seeing more agroforestry practices being implemented is that agroforestry just needs a lot more people and a lot more skill sets, and creates opportunities for a lot more people and skill sets on the land. So if you've got a diverse alley cropping, silvopasture, non-timber agroforestry products operation, I mean, you're going to need a lot of different people to work for you, a lot of people who could potentially take on some of those enterprises as their own. So a lot more opportunities for collaboration. And I mean, my whole thing is that we don't all have to do everything. So when you're thinking about deploying some agroforestry practices on your land, that's your opportunity to think about how you can collaborate with other people who have the skill sets that you don't, whether it be planting trees or managing livestock or marketing, or you know, we just don't all have to do it alone. That's the way of the past.
All right. Well, we couldn't have said it better ourselves. So I'm so glad that we had that video to share some of Heidi's perspectives as someone who's worked with you on your farm, Dana. And we're just so delighted to share this recognition with you. Do you have anything that you'd like to share?
I'd love to. This is just, yeah, thank you so much. This is a real treat to hear such kind words from folks that I admire so much. Yeah, I just wanted to echo sort of something that I said at the end of the video of, yeah, how we don't all have to do anything, or we don't all have to do everything. And that's been sort of what I repeat to myself over and over again, because there's just so much work to do in the world. And I am just so happy that the folks at the Savannah Institute are doing so much of the important work and are so good at doing it. I think we can all sleep better at night knowing that that you find folks at the Savannah Institute are thinking about how we get to the landscape level change that we so desperately need in the US and all over the world. And I'm super grateful to get this new Shoots Award, because I very much am a new little tiny shoot. We bought our land in 2015 and have been slowly moving our way into agroforestry practices. Sort of our annual crop is pigs, but long term, that's where we want to go. And we're grateful that we've got this great community of people to be connected to. So thank you, Savannah Institute. Thank you, Jen, for those really kind words. I love you. I'm so glad to know you. I also want to my name is on the award, but I'm going to make Nick come over here too, because we are a team.
Hello.
Oh, here, scoot up. This is,
Okay.
yeah, this is my husband, Nick. Oh gosh,
No.
there we go.
Thank you.
So thank you to him. Everything, if you were to look at a video camera at our farm and see like, oh, there's the farmer, I do a lot of that stuff, out chasing pigs around, but really Nick is the reason why we've been able to stick with this, because farming is hard. Farming is hard, and Nick keeps us going. He does all this sort of underappreciated stuff, like making sure that we have food to eat in the house, because I hate cooking, and does all the accounting. And so really this is a team, and I want to accept the award as a team. Also, thanks to all the friends and family who have stepped in with big important pep talks at crucial points. I've been farming on and off since I was 19, and I'm 37 now. Without those very frequent pep talks, I probably would have quit by now. So as Jen sort of alluded to, every October I threaten to quit. But I think both important pep talks, this community, and then also just looking to the future and getting really excited and motivated and energized by all the different kinds of agroforestry we're going to be able to do if we keep at it, has really been very motivating, and has kept us going. Also, I think I just want to end by saying I could never even begin to detail the amount of privilege and luck that's taken to get us this far. And so if there's anything we can do to be of service to folks, if that's just hopping on a call to talk about how to get started with pastured hogs, happy to share numbers or thoughts on what we've done as far as our silvo pasture efforts. Happy to share all the highs and lows of the incubator farm program, and if anyone wants to brainstorm on that, if anyone would like to come and learn with us as part of our incubator farm program, or as an apprentice through the Savannah Institute apprenticeship program, we would welcome that. If there's anything we can do to pay it forward and help, we'd love that. So just I'll end there. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Dana and Gary. You two are two of the most excellent team players around. And so I think we're all extremely grateful to be on teaming up with you. So I don't think that we have a whole lot more planned here. If anybody else wants to say anything, to say thank you to Gary or Dana, you're certainly welcome to. We don't need to close the door here, but that's all we've got planned as well. So I'll just end with one more heartfelt thanks to both of you, Gary and Dana.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.